Wife cheated on me with my brother, then tried to sleep with my dad. I destroyed her reputation and her life. You're going to have to pardon me if I approach this with a very unforgiving tone towards women, but if you hear what I've been through, or if you go through the same, you'll understand exactly why I feel the way that I do. I've been married to BB for 8 years, and the last thing that you expect someone who you've been married to for that long to do is cheat on you with your own brother. Don't think that I'm absolving my brother of blame in this, because I'm not. He's dead to me, but that wasn't all that BB did to me. The two of us met through a family friend. He knew that both of us were single, and that family friend thought that the two of us were getting too old to be single, so he arranged for us to meet. We did, and surprisingly, it went very well. So I spent my time looking out for red flags and anything I wouldn't like. I didn't see any of it, because besides her being a cheating whore, she's a good person in other aspects. We chose not to have children, which is something that I'm glad about. I was always on the fence regarding that, but when she didn't want children, it helped solidify my position. Even after what she's done, it's not something that I regret as I've gotten older. I first got an idea that something was going on when my brother came to stay with us for a few days. He lived several states away, and I hadn't seen him in ages. It was great seeing him again after so long, though it wasn't the first time he had seen me after I got married. He knew BB well, so you can't even blame anything on that. He was normal with me the first day that he came, but I noticed that the day before he was due to leave, he was acting really off with me. He was nervous and talking way too much. It was like he was trying to be his normal self, even though something wasn't right with him. I was initially concerned because I kept asking what was going on with him, but he kept saying that he was fine. I didn't believe it though. It was when I saw my wife and she was acting off too that I knew something had happened between the two of them. I really didn't want to believe it was anything intimate because that was literally the worst case scenario for me. I tried my best to think of other situations that could have had both of them acting weird but refusing to tell me what was happening. In the end, there was nothing else I could come up with. I decided to confront my brother directly, so I went up to him, acting like I knew what had happened. I told him that BB had been acting odd just like him, and I had spoken to her. I asked him to be honest and tell me his side of the story. I was acting angry, but like I was still trying to be civil with him. I've always been level-headed, and I think he was about to take the chance to come clean, but at that moment, BB walked in, and he decided to maintain his stance that nothing was up. It's extremely hard to have the strong notion that your wife and your brother were sleeping with each other, but when you don't have proof, what are you meant to do? After he left, I grilled BB further, without pointing out what I suspected, but she still maintained that nothing had happened. She even started to get annoyed at how insistent my questioning was, so I left it at that. I even tried to snoop through her phone and her messages with my brother, Daniel, but the conversations were sparse and very basic. If they had talked about what had happened after the fact, she had deleted the evidence from her phone, so there wasn't anything for me to go by. Although that's past already, I wonder what a lot of you would have done. Would you have just gone with your gut and declared that they had slept together without even the slightest bit of proof? It felt stupid to use two people acting weird as my basis for accusing both of them for betraying me. It just wasn't enough, and there are a lot of things that can make people act weird. In the end, I just let it go. I did call my brother one last time about the issue, but it didn't yield anything. The entire time, I never alluded to the fact that either of them had slept with each other, but I'm sure that they were smart enough to know that that was what I was worried about. I was able to get my confirmation several months later when we had to go to a wedding in another state. It was a close relative of mine, so my brother was there, and so was my dad. My brother died when I was young, so my dad has been single ever since then. He looks like an older version of me, but he takes really good care of himself despite his age, so he's attractive if I can say that. For the wedding, a lot of us stayed in the same hotel. BB told me that she was getting tired and she wanted to head to the room, so that was fine by me. I continued to dance and have fun, and things were fine with me for the rest of the night. By the time I got back to the room, BB was asleep. At that point, we had already moved on from the whole situation with my brother. I remembered it when I saw them together at the wedding, but they acted fine with one another there, so I think that was what I used to finally get my mind off of things. I had no idea that things were going to get worse for me just hours later. In the morning of that day, BB stayed in bed, claiming that she was hungover. So I went to go and grab breakfast. I saw my dad there, and he said that he had to talk with me and that it was extremely important. I was worried because I know the man, and I could tell that what he had to say wasn't good news. He said that we should finish our food first, and when we did that, he said we should take a walk. That was when he told me, without hesitation, that BB had come to his room after she left the wedding. He let her in because they had a chill relationship. It wasn't something I was worried about either because I trusted my dad more than anyone in the world. He told me that things started out with them just catching up on things, but he noticed she started to get really flirty and touchy. He assumed she had too much to drink, so he was rejecting her gently. Then he said she went straight in for a kiss and tried to grab his crotch in the process. That was when he pushed her away a bit roughly. "Do you think I'm drunk? Is that why you don't want me? I'm not. I know what I'm doing," was what he said she said. She stood up and dropped the shoulders of her gown to expose her chest. That was when he had to somewhat roughly push her out of the room. He promised me that he hadn't done more than that, and that he was telling me this because even though nothing happened, I needed to know that she had tried to seduce him, and that was just as bad. I took it hard, because considering the fact that I suspected that she had cheated on me with my brother, I was now finding out that she had tried to cheat on me with my own dad. He did his best to make me feel better in that moment, but how are you meant to when you find out that your wife didn't just cheat on you, but she tried to do it with the person closest to you? How bad can a woman be? In the midst of all that, I knew that I needed to find out what had happened with her and my brother. Even if I found out that she had only tried to seduce my brother and nothing had happened after that, it wouldn't have saved us from going towards divorce. The thing is, I just needed to know what had happened, and that was it. I thought that there were chances that my brother didn't delete any messages between them if they had talked about what had happened after he left. She lived with me, so it made sense that she'd delete the messages. He didn't, and we barely saw, so there was little reason for him to delete them, unless he just wanted to be on the safe side. I knew that there was no way I was going to access his phone, and he'd actually just stand around and let me, so I told my dad all about what had happened and what I thought about it. He looked even more shocked at that. I think he felt really bad for me that the person I was married to was that kind of person, because as I said, Bibi really seemed like a good person. I really thought I knew her, but I guess you can never truly know someone to the extent that you want to know them. He said he'd help me check my brother's phone, since his guard would be down if I was him. I agreed, and I really hoped that he'd be able to do it before we left and hit the road. Thankfully, he was able to do just that. He was able to use my brother's phone by claiming that his was charging in the hotel room. My brother didn't have an issue with handing the phone to my dad, and he was able to check his chats with Bibi, screenshot, and send the pictures to me from my brother's phone, and then delete the screenshots from the chat and the gallery. It was exactly as I had originally feared. From the messages, my brother regretted it, not that that mattered much, and confronted her pretty aggressively, since she was the one who had come on to him. He hadn't said no, and they had had sex right there in my house. It was afterward the dust settled that they were left with the guilt, it seemed, but for her to have tried it again with my dad, there clearly wasn't enough guilt on her part. To realize that you're married to a woman who has no issue sleeping with your brother and then trying but failing to sleep with your dad is a life-changing realization. I wasted years of my life with this woman. After more than a decade in my life, I found out that she was never the kind of person whom I could trust. It killed me to know that. I thanked my dad, and then I went to confront my brother when he was packing in his hotel room. I'm not proud of it, but I don't regret it. I sucker punched him as soon as I saw him, and it connected well. He fell to the floor and he was looking at me in shock, but he didn't say anything. I'm sure he knew exactly what had happened. I crouched over him and grabbed the collar of his shirt he was wearing. My fist was clenched and I really wanted to hit him again, but I chose not to because his lip was bleeding. I told him that he was dead to me. I let go of him, and as I walked out, I heard him say that he was really sorry. I didn't have anything to say to him, so I just walked out. I know that he's going to tell Bibi about what happened, but I don't care. I will address it with her when I'm ready. I don't mind her having to deal with the anxiety of it. I went back to the room and she had recovered from her hangover. I acted normally and asked her if she had had breakfast, but she said she wasn't hungry. We drove back to our state. I only got the chance to see that she was acting uneasy when we got back home. I'm sure she must have read the text from Daniel while I was driving, and now she didn't know how to react. It was probably worse because I didn't even tell Daniel why I hit him. He had just had to use his sense and come to a conclusion. She asked me a few times whether I was good, but I'd just smile, look at her and say, "Yep, why wouldn't I be?" I can tell that she's been extremely uncomfortable with being at home with me, but that's good, because I'm enjoying the fact that she's dealing with the knowledge that I know, but she doesn't know whether I've chosen to let it slide or I'm going to wake her up with a pistol in her face. She doesn't deserve easy living at this point, and she can move out if it gets that bad for her. She likely thinks I don't know about the thing that with my dad either. She'll find out that I do. I'll confront her, but I want to get the divorce papers ready before I do that. I'm not in a rush because I want her to have to deal with the mental stress. Update 1. I'll get right to it. I confronted Bibi about her cheating on me with my brother and trying to sleep with my dad. Just writing that out, it is horrible, but it is the truth. That's the life that I'm living right now. It was a Saturday, and someone was at the door, so I told her to go and get it. When she did, it was the process server, and he handed her the divorce papers. By the time she got into the living room, I went straight into it. I told her that I didn't want anything to do with her ever again, and I wanted a divorce. She actually asked, "Why?" And I told her that she was a stupid hoe for asking me that. Yes, I said that. No, I don't regret it. I was angry. I still am, and I have the right to be. I told her she knew exactly why, and she knew that I knew. I hated the fact that she still thought she could play dumb. What was the objective of that? To buy time or something? I told her that she had ruined our marriage, and she did it in the worst way possible. I let her know that I hated my brother now, but I hated her more, and I was never going to not hate her. She started to cry at that point, and it made me laugh. I asked her where her emotions were when she decided to sleep with Daniel. She tried to interrupt me to explain herself, but I told her to shut up. I let her know that there was nothing she could say that was going to fix the situation. There was nothing she could say to make it better. Before she could say anything, I let her know that I knew she had tried to sleep with my dad too. I saw her face change, because she had no idea I knew. I called her every name under the sun during that confrontation. My voice was raised, and I'm sure that the neighbors could hear, but I really didn't care too much about that. I just needed her to know my true feelings. I'm not going to be one of those soft husbands who confronts the woman in such a gentle, loving fashion. I'm not the "I'll always love you" kind of husband either. I hate her now, and I can admit that. I asked her why, because that's what I really wanted to know, and I was screaming at her, but she couldn't say anything, or didn't want to say anything. She just kept crying. I asked over and over, but nothing came out. She couldn't say anything to me by the time I was done. She was full on crying, and whether it was simply because of how mean I had been, because she regretted her actions and their consequences, or both, I was just glad to see her in tears. I had been hurt as badly as anyone could hurt me. So seeing her in pain wasn't a bad payoff for me. I told her she had 20 minutes to pack her things and get out of the house. Initially, she acted all slow about it, but when I started to throw random things into a suitcase for her, that's when she got up from the floor and began to pack. She was out of there before the 20 minutes were over. I'm filled with very negative emotions right now, and I'll likely come off as a prick to a lot of people reading this. But that's kind of what happens when your wife sleeps with your brother and you have to cut both of them out of your life. I'm just waiting for the actual divorce. But I know that's not where I'm going to end things with her. Update 2. I'm back, and I can say that I'm finally done with BB. I'm in a horrible place with my last update, and reading it back, I can say that a lot of those negative emotions are still around. But I found an outlet for a lot of them, which I'll talk about here. The divorce wasn't the interesting part. That went by pretty quickly. I kept our apartment, I kept the car, and I have to pay alimony. That's pretty much it. I hate the fact that I have to give her money after all of that, but I think at this point, we pretty much all understand how the legal system works, so whatever. What was interesting was what I chose to do after the divorce. In fact, looking back, it was quite fun for me. I had the screenshots that my dad had sent to me from my brother's phone, and that was all I needed. We live in a relatively small town, so I started to make a long post explaining the situation on the town's Facebook page. I included the screenshots. Then I printed out that post and the screenshots, and I put it on bulletin boards around the town. I didn't shy away from making it clear I was behind it all. That was obvious. A lot of people reached out to me, some to say that they were so sorry about it, others to ask for more details so they'd be able to gossip more accurately. I told them everything they wanted to know. Of course, BB reached out and she was angry. She told me to take down the post. She had taken down my papers from a lot of the bulletin boards, but I knew that people had seen them in the time that it took her to take them down. She didn't know I had one at the church in town. I let her know it was impossible because it was part of what I thought she deserved. She threatened me with legal action, but I laughed because the claims I made could be backed up by the screenshots or my father if it came to it. She said that I was ruining her life. I said that I was glad to hear that. I stopped by the place that she worked to buy a few things, and she was very uneasy when I walked in. I talked with her boss about the situation, and it was clear he didn't know whose side to take, but I wanted him to know the kind of person he had hired. I also said it so that the customers in the store would know the kind of person who worked there. The whole thing with her ended up becoming a whole scandal, the kind of thing that towns like mine love to have because they don't have enough entertainment. I continued posting on the bulletin boards on a daily basis, and while a few people tried to stop me, most of them stayed up on the board for at least a few hours straight. She got tired of being the talk of the town, and she came to the apartment to give me a piece of her mind. She told me she was leaving town because I had ruined her life and she couldn't live there anymore. She was depressed and anxious, and she couldn't sleep at night. She said that she didn't deserve to go through all of that because of the mistakes that she had made, but I let her know she deserved worse. "I knew I wouldn't be able to get you to talk civilly," was what she said, and I just laughed. That stung, and I saw tears pooling in her eyes. She left before I could see her cry. I look back on that moment, and I feel good. I'm not a good person, but I never claimed to be. I was good to her, But that never mattered. For now, I'm going to go along staying away from women in general because I don't want anything to do with them. Maybe one day that will change, but it's not any day close. Cheating with your brother? Absolutely vile. But trying your dad? That's a whole new level of catastrophic. There's no excuse for it, no mitigating circumstances. This isn't a lapse in judgment, it's pure, deliberate maliciousness. Anyone capable of seducing both your brother and then trying your father is totally toxic and out for the kill. Your brother isn't innocent here. These aren't people you mourn or forgive. Run far away. And honestly, the bulletin board campaign? Brilliant. Nothing says you're a disaster and everyone knows it, quite like plastering the receipts for all to see. That's turning their chaos back on them, full force, and making sure they finally feel the weight of the havoc they caused. Brave, OP. 2-for-1 betrayal? Brother and dad. Would you even believe it if it happened to you? Has it happened to you? Share your stories in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.